They think a quiet woman can't change the game. But Emily Carter was about to prove them wrong. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Emily stepped through the dojo doors, her simple gray gi fitting loosely, her brown ponytail swinging gently behind her. The sunlight streamed through the tall windows, casting long shadows across the polished wooden floor, catching the faint scent of sweat and disinfectant that hung in the air. The students practicing kata paused briefly, eyes flicking toward the new arrival, curious but cautious. At 28, Emily had a quiet presence that seemed to blend seamlessly into the background. Yet there was a calm assurance in the way she held her shoulders, a subtle confidence that spoke of years of discipline honed far from the glare of spectators. Brad Hoffman, the head instructor, adjusted his black belt and stepped forward, his voice cutting across the room with practiced authority. "New student, huh? Let's see if you can keep up," he said, a faint smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth, unaware of the storm he had just invited into his dojo. The other black belts exchanged knowing glances, sensing a moment of amusement as they anticipated Emily's timid attempt at joining the advanced class. The room felt alive with the quiet tension of expectation, the sound of shoes against mats echoing faintly, punctuated by the distant thud of striking bags. Emily nodded politely, her lips pressed in a thin line as she stepped forward, careful to position herself at the back of the line, her eyes scanning the room not in fear but in measured observation. Every subtle movement of the instructors, every posture correction, every tilt of the head, she absorbed silently, noting the rhythm and cadence of the class with practiced attention. She moved with deliberate slowness at first, warm-up, stretches flowing from one position to the next, her breathing deep and controlled, a soft internal mantra keeping her centered amidst the quiet scrutiny. The black belts murmured amongst themselves, a low buzz of whispered commentary barely audible over the soft hum of concentration. Emily's gaze met that of a younger student, who offered a tentative smile, perhaps sensing that this quiet newcomer carried something unexpected. The sunlight caught the glint of her eyes, steady and unyielding, reflecting a calm focus that belied her unassuming appearance. Brad stepped closer, his tone sharpened with a hint of mockery. "Don't hurt yourself trying to keep up. This class is for those who know what they're doing." Emily's lips curved slightly, a hint of amusement at the underestimation surrounding her, yet she said nothing aloud, letting her posture and measured movements speak instead. The room seemed to hold its breath as she continued through the warm-ups, each motion precise and unhurried, her mind cataloging every detail, every subtle shift in balance, every pattern of movement from the instructors. The quiet clack of the wooden floor beneath her feet, the soft rustle of uniforms, the distant sound of a bell marking time, all became part of the rhythm she internalized, preparing her for what she knew would come next. Emily's presence was like a calm current in the midst of a storm, unassuming yet filled with purpose, and as she finished her stretches, she allowed her eyes to sweep the room one last time, noting the posture of the black belts, the stance of Brad, the faint tension in the air. There was no fear, no hesitation, only quiet confidence and anticipation. The instructors, unaware, exchanged glances with subtle amusement, thinking they were about to witness a simple newcomer struggle, never imagining that Emily Carter, quiet and seemingly ordinary, was ready to turn the ordinary into something extraordinary, and that the very expectations set to humiliate her would soon become the stage upon which she revealed her true skill. Emily moved through the room with quiet precision, her eyes scanning each student as they practiced their sequences, noting the smallest deviations and adjustments. Every step she took was deliberate, measured, as though she were mapping the space with careful calculation. The instructors, Brad included, continued their commentary, unaware that the new student was not only observing but internalizing every nuance, every subtle shift in posture and balance. The afternoon sun cast elongated shadows across the polished mats, catching the dust motes in the air and highlighting the stillness of her focus, a calm contrast to the slight tension that seemed to ripple through the other students. Her hands rested lightly at her sides, fingertips brushing the fabric of her gi, grounding herself in the rhythm of the dojo, each inhalation and exhalation a silent anchor in the midst of the quiet storm of observation. A younger student stumbled slightly during a complex sequence, and Emily instinctively noted the correction without making a sound, her mind cataloging the differences, understanding the mechanics behind every adjustment. Brad shifted his stance, crossing his arms and nodding in apparent satisfaction at the display of obedience and focus, not realizing that the subtle challenge he had set was being met with an entirely different kind of preparation. Emily's gaze softened momentarily as she took in the room, the array of students, the patterns of motion, the deliberate cadence of strikes and blocks, the soft thump of padded feet against the mats, and the low hum of concentration that filled the dojo. Every detail was stored, each motion analyzed silently, and her breathing remained steady, even as the instructors began to demonstrate the upcoming sequence for the sparring drill. The students were directed to form pairs, and murmurs rippled quietly across the room, some expressing curiosity, others barely concealing doubt, as they regarded Emily with a mixture of expectation and subtle amusement. She remained in the background, observing with a calm intensity, absorbing the timing, the spacing, the flow of each demonstration, allowing her mind to weave together the patterns into a coherent understanding that surpassed what the casual eye might notice. Brad approached, gesturing to the group, and emphasizing the importance of precision and control, his voice firm but carrying the faint undercurrent of mockery that he had perfected over years of instruction. Emily responded with the faintest nod, acknowledging his words while maintaining her posture, letting her calm presence radiate quietly through the room. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation, the students whispered conjectures adding to the tension that Emily carried lightly on her shoulders, as if aware that the moment of true engagement was approaching and that it would be defined not by the chatter of others, but by the clarity of her own preparation. Every muscle, every sense was alert yet relaxed, the balance of readiness and composure cultivated over years of disciplined training, a silent promise that when the moment arrived, she would meet it fully prepared, without hesitation or distraction, her mind clear and her body attuned to the subtle rhythms that governed the space around her. The instructors continued their pacing, demonstrating combinations and calling attention to detail. But Emily absorbed it all quietly, her thoughts a meticulous calculation of potential outcomes, her focus unbroken by the murmurs or the occasional glance that sought to unsettle her. She adjusted her stance slightly, a minor shift that would make a difference when the drill commenced, a careful alignment that spoke of experience far beyond what any observer could immediately discern. The room's energy seemed to pivot subtly around her calm presence, unnoticed by most, but setting the stage for the moment when preparation and opportunity would converge, a silent build of anticipation that promised an outcome far beyond the expectations of those who thought they had assessed her capabilities correctly. Emily's eyes met those of Brad briefly, a flicker of acknowledgment passing between them, but no words were exchanged, no indication given that she had fully grasped the flow of the class, the movement patterns, the timing of each sequence, and the precise understanding of spatial relationships that would allow her to navigate what was coming next with both grace and assured competence, waiting only for the signal to step forward and engage fully. The instructors began assigning partners for the upcoming drill, the tension in the room increasing subtly as students shuffled into pairs, exchanging polite nods and tentative smiles. Emily remained near the back, her posture calm, her gaze unwavering, observing the dynamics of each pairing, noting the balance, timing, and spacing with meticulous attention. Brad stepped forward, his tone authoritative as he outlined the expectations, emphasizing control, precision, and discipline, his words carrying the faint edge of superiority that he believed would unsettle the newcomers. The other black belts mirrored his stance, a subtle air of amusement in their movements, anticipating that Emily, the quiet newcomer, would struggle with the complex combinations. She moved with measured steps to her designated spot, a soft tap of her feet on the polished mats echoing faintly in the room, her breathing steady, controlled, each inhalation a silent affirmation of focus and readiness. Her eyes swept the room once more, absorbing the positioning of each student, the trajectory of their movements, the rhythm of their footwork, and the alignment of their stances, committing every detail to memory. The warm sunlight streamed through the tall windows, highlighting the dust motes in the air and casting elongated shadows across the floor, accentuating the deliberate pace and disciplined form of the class. Brad gave a sharp nod, signaling the beginning of the sequence, and students moved fluidly, executing the predetermined combinations while exchanging glances and subtle cues. Emily followed the motions with quiet precision, her movements smooth and intentional, as if each step and gesture had been rehearsed countless times in a private, internal dojo of experience. The instructors circulated, offering corrections and encouragement, their voices a blend of critique and instruction, not realizing that Emily was absorbing every word, every adjustment, every nuance, and integrating it seamlessly into her own understanding. She anticipated transitions before they were demonstrated, subtly adjusting her stance and timing, her awareness of spatial dynamics allowing her to move with an ease that belied her unassuming appearance. A faint murmur passed among the students as Emily executed a particularly intricate movement with flawless form, her calm expression and steady gaze betraying no strain or hesitation. The instructors glanced briefly at each other, a flicker of curiosity crossing their faces, yet they continued their demonstrations, unaware that the quiet observer had already internalized the techniques and rhythms that would soon define the outcome of the drill. Emily's focus remained unbroken, her awareness encompassing the entire room, the position of each student, the pace of each movement, and the subtle variations in execution, all cataloged silently within her mind. The light from the windows shifted gradually, illuminating the sheen of perspiration on the mats, the subtle creases of concentration on the faces of her peers, and the rhythm of synchronized steps that echoed softly through the dojo. As the drill continued, Emily's movements grew more confident, her internal calculations guiding her timing and posture, allowing her to anticipate transitions and adjust with minimal effort, all while maintaining the calm composure that had become her signature presence. The instructors remained unaware of the quiet power developing within the room, their focus on the overtly visible struggles and successes of the other students, while Emily silently prepared for the precise moment when observation, preparation, and innate skill would converge into a display that would challenge every expectation they had set for her. The energy in the dojo shifted imperceptibly, a subtle charge of anticipation building as Emily aligned her stance, centered her breathing, and poised herself mentally for the drill, the calm and deliberate rhythm of her movements contrasting with the heightened tension of those around her, signaling that the quiet one in the back was ready to engage fully with a confidence that would soon become impossible to ignore. The instructors signaled the start of the sparring drills, their voices firm yet measured, emphasizing technique, precision, and awareness, while the students paired off, moving through the sequences with a mix of concentration and cautious anticipation. Emily stood slightly apart, observing the subtle cues, the shifts in weight, the timing of each step, all while maintaining a calm exterior, her breathing even and controlled. Brad moved among the pairs, offering corrections, his eyes scanning for mistakes, confident that the quiet newcomer would falter at the first sign of challenge. Emily shifted her weight slightly, adjusting her stance, and her gaze followed each motion, noting the rhythm, the angles, the interplay of force and balance, cataloging it internally with a precision that belied her unassuming presence. The sunlight streaming through the dojo windows highlighted the sheen of effort on the mats, the focused expressions of the students, and the subtle tension in the shoulders of those anticipating the next demonstration. A soft rustle of GI fabric accompanied each movement, the faint scrape of shoes on the polished floor punctuating the low hum of concentrated effort, blending into a quiet symphony of discipline and preparation. Emily moved forward, her steps deliberate, each placement of her feet measured, her posture aligned, as she prepared to enter the drill fully, her senses attuned to the flow of energy in the room. The other students shifted nervously, sensing the intensity of her focus, while Brad's smirk remained faint, a reflection of his anticipation, unaware of the depth of skill waiting to be revealed. Emily's eyes tracked the instructor demonstrating the sequence, noting the cadence, the transitions, and the subtle changes in momentum, absorbing the details with a clarity that suggested a deep understanding of movement and timing. Her hands rested lightly at her sides, fingers brushing the GI fabric, grounding her in the rhythm of the room, while her mind orchestrated the patterns of motion she would employ, aligning observation with anticipation. A pair of students executed a combination, their timing slightly off, and Emily made a subtle adjustment in her stance, invisible to the casual eye, yet reinforcing her readiness to engage with precision when the moment arrived. Brad called out the next phase. The movements becoming more complex, requiring quick shifts in balance and coordination, and the room seemed to tense collectively, the students' concentration intensifying, unaware that Emily had already internalized the entire sequence and was poised to respond with exacting control. Emily allowed herself a measured breath, her focus narrowing, her awareness encompassing the space around her, the trajectory of each student, and the rhythm of each step, a quiet anticipation building as she prepared for the precise moment when observation would transition into action. The instructors continued their rotations, offering guidance and encouragement, their words a backdrop to the silent preparation unfolding in Emily's mind, her internal focus sharpening with every movement, her composure unshaken by the subtle murmur of speculation among the students. She adjusted her stance once more, aligning her weight and centering her balance, a silent preparation that demonstrated the depth of her understanding, the years of disciplined practice now converging in readiness. The sunlight glinted off the polished wooden floor, catching the faint sheen of effort and concentration, emphasizing the stillness and intent in Emily's posture, the calm before the engagement, the quiet tension poised to give way to a display of precision and skill that would leave the observers momentarily breathless, their expectations quietly suspended as they awaited the first deliberate step of her participation in the drill. Every sense in the room seemed to tune into her presence, the subtle shift in energy marking her readiness, the anticipation of the instructors and students blending into a collective pause, the room holding its breath in a cinematic suspension that promised an impending revelation of competence and composure. Emily took her first deliberate step into the drill, her movements smooth and controlled, the subtle shift of her weight, the precise alignment of her posture, and the even rhythm of her breathing all signaling the quiet confidence that had been building silently throughout the class. Brad observed with a faint smirk, expecting a hesitant or awkward execution, while the other students readied themselves, some casting nervous glances, others whispering speculation under their breath. Emily moved through the sequence with careful attention, each motion executed with a clarity and fluidity that made the complexity appear natural, as though the patterns were an extension of her own body, internalized from years of disciplined practice. The polished wooden floor reflected the sunlight streaming through the tall windows, catching the subtle sheen of effort from each student, while Emily's presence remained calm and composed, a quiet contrast to the slight tension and anticipatory energy radiating from her peers. The sound of controlled steps, the swish of fabric against the floor, and the rhythmic inhalation and exhalation of focused students created a cadence that Emily synchronized with effortlessly, her mind mapping every transition, every angle, every shift in momentum. Brad stepped forward slightly, raising his voice to issue a correction to another pair, a sharp note of authority cutting through the room, but Emily remained undistracted, her eyes focused on the precise execution of each element, mentally rehearsing the forthcoming adjustments needed for the next phase of the drill. As the pairs continued, a misstep in timing occurred with one of the other students, and Emily made an almost imperceptible adjustment in her stance, subtle yet perfectly timed, signaling the depth of her awareness without drawing attention. The sunlight highlighted the dust in the air and the subtle muscle engagement across Emily's frame, the movement flowing naturally, demonstrating control and anticipation, the result of years of disciplined training practiced away from observation. Her breathing remained even, each exhalation deliberate, a rhythm that maintained both focus and composure, allowing her to respond instinctively, to every shift in the environment. The instructors continued to move among the students, offering guidance, demonstrating corrections, and emphasizing the importance of control and precision, yet they remained unaware of the quiet mastery Emily was weaving into her performance, the room unaware that she had already absorbed the intricacies of the entire drill. Emily's eyes scanned the dojo as she prepared for the moment when observation would give way to active demonstration, each detail cataloged, the positioning of feet, the balance shifts, the timing of arm and leg movements, the subtle engagement of muscles, all internalized. The students' murmurs, the shuffle of feet, the occasional correction, and the low hum of focused energy blended seamlessly into the background of her consciousness, creating a mental map of the room and its flow. Emily shifted subtly, aligning her weight, centering her balance, and engaging her core, readying herself for the precise execution required, a poised anticipation radiating through her calm exterior. The instructors, still focused on the overt demonstrations, failed to notice the silent intensity gathering in the quiet student, whose preparation had now reached a level where every potential challenge had been anticipated, every pattern understood, and every sequence ready to be performed with exacting precision. The atmosphere in the dojo grew heavier with anticipation, the students' subtle glances and movements unconsciously acknowledging the quiet shift in energy, a collective pause of awareness that signaled the moment was approaching when Emily's disciplined focus, precise timing, and unwavering composure would converge, revealing a level of skill that would exceed all expectations, a silent yet unmistakable prelude to the demonstration that was about to unfold. Emily took a steadying breath and stepped fully into the center of the dojo, her movements seamless and deliberate as she initiated the first set of sequences. The other students momentarily paused, sensing a shift in the room, their murmurs quieting as they observed the calm confidence radiating from her posture. Brad stepped closer, his expression slightly tightening with curiosity, expecting some hesitation or error, yet Emily moved fluidly, her awareness of spatial relationships and timing allowing her to anticipate each motion before it occurred. Her footwork was precise, her balance unwavering, and the subtle control of her limbs made complex sequences appear effortless, the result of years of silent, disciplined practice that had been hidden from view. The sunlight glinted off the polished wooden floors, reflecting her measured steps and highlighting the smooth flow of her GI with every controlled movement, casting long shadows that danced in rhythm with her precision. Brad and the black belts exchanged glances, a hint of surprise flickering in their eyes, as they began to recognize that this quiet newcomer possessed a level of mastery they had not anticipated. Emily's attention was comprehensive, absorbing not only her own actions but the movements of her partners and the patterns emerging in the room, adjusting her stance subtly to maintain optimal alignment and flow. The soft echo of steps, the quiet rustle of uniforms, and the collective intake of breath from the observing students created an almost tangible tension that Emily navigated with calm awareness, her focus unbroken. Every shift, every step, every pivot was executed with a clarity that combined anticipation and instinct, allowing her to seamlessly integrate corrections and enhancements to the sequences in real time. Brad's voice rose with instruction, offering corrections and cues to other students. But Emily's performance remained unaffected, her presence commanding attention through the quiet authority of competence. The students' expressions shifted from polite curiosity to genuine amazement as they noted the fluidity and precision in her movements, the subtle timing, and the way she responded instinctively to the nuances of the drill without hesitation. A brief glance at Brad revealed his smirk had faded, replaced with a measured focus, an acknowledgment of the unexpected skill before him, yet he remained silent, allowing Emily's demonstration to speak for itself. The energy in the dojo seemed to bend around her calm control, the soft sounds of controlled movements, breath, and shifting feet forming a backdrop to the quiet revelation of mastery that was unfolding. Emily transitioned from one combination to another seamlessly, her internal map of the sequence guiding each adjustment, each nuanced correction applied instinctively, maintaining elegance and precision. The atmosphere was heavy with anticipation as the other students subconsciously stepped back, giving her space, their prior assumptions dissipating in the face of competence and measured focus. The sunlight highlighted her steady movements, the rhythm of her breathing, and the alignment of her body, creating a visual cadence that mirrored the poise and control in her mind. Each motion reinforced her readiness, her awareness of space, timing, and the patterns of her peers, creating a flow that allowed her to move with assured control, while Brad and the black belts watched, recognizing, perhaps for the first time, that the quiet woman they had underestimated had prepared herself with unmatched discipline and precision. Emily completed the sequence, returning to a neutral stance with controlled calm, her chest rising and falling evenly, her eyes scanning the room to absorb the subtle reactions around her. The room remained still for a heartbeat, the air suspended in quiet acknowledgment, as the impact of her performance settled on the observing students and instructors, an unspoken lesson in focus, preparation, and the understated power of mastery, leaving the dojo in a collective pause that spoke louder than words ever could. Emily's movements continued with fluid precision, the sequence now unfolding with a subtle acceleration, each step measured yet confident, her awareness extending beyond her own motions to the shifts and adjustments of her partners. The room seemed to pause around her, the hum of concentration from the students, and the soft echoes of feet on the polished wooden floor, creating an almost tangible rhythm that Emily moved in harmony with. Brad and the other instructors exchanged glances, a hint of incredulity breaking through their composed exteriors, as they observed the quiet mastery displayed by the newcomer, the skill and poise surpassing what they had anticipated from her understated appearance. Emily's breathing remained controlled, each inhalation and exhalation deliberate, maintaining a steady center that allowed her to respond to the evolving drill with a clarity and calm that seemed almost effortless. The sunlight streaming through the dojo windows caught the subtle sheen of her movements, highlighting the smooth coordination of her arms and legs as she transitioned seamlessly from one motion to the next, integrating timing, balance, and spatial awareness into a cohesive flow. Students nearby adjusted unconsciously to her rhythm, their tentative steps and movements aligning with the quiet authority of her presence, while whispers of admiration and surprise rippled softly among them, acknowledging the unexpected proficiency that Emily brought to the center of the room. Brad's voice rose intermittently, offering guidance and instruction, but his corrections were now accompanied by a restrained observation, a recognition of the competence that could not be ignored. Emily's eyes scanned the dojo continuously, noting every detail, from the angle of a student's stance to the timing of a pivot, integrating these observations into her own execution, enhancing her movements with subtle refinements that elevated the sequence beyond the basic instruction. The mats beneath her feet reflected the sunlight and her steady steps, the soft swish of her gi, fabric harmonizing with the controlled cadence of the drill, the sound a quiet testament to the grace and focus of her performance. The other students shifted, some instinctively making room, others pausing to observe more intently, drawn to the precise coordination and awareness that Emily displayed without overt effort or attention-seeking behavior. Her focus remained unwavering, a blend of mental clarity and physical readiness that allowed her to navigate the increasingly complex combinations with a seamless integration of anticipation and execution. Each adjustment, each subtle shift in posture, each carefully timed step reinforced her control and awareness, and the room responded unconsciously to the presence of a participant who embodied both calm and precision, shifting the atmosphere into a heightened state of attentiveness. Brad's smirk had faded completely, replaced by a quiet, measured focus, as he noted the effortless integration of observation, timing, and skill, a realization dawning that the quiet student had fully mastered the sequence before most had even begun to comprehend it. Emily continued through the drill, her movements precise, her balance unwavering, her awareness comprehensive, blending observation, anticipation, and execution into a performance that commanded the attention of all present, a subtle yet undeniable demonstration of preparation and discipline that redefined the expectations of those around her. The sunlight continued to cast long shadows across the dojo, emphasizing the elegance of her posture and the measured grace of her motions. The room absorbed into the quiet authority of her presence, the energy shifting subtly as the realization spread that Emily's understated demeanor had concealed a mastery that was both remarkable and completely unanticipated. Every motion, every subtle adjustment, every transition flowed seamlessly, and the students and instructors alike could not help but acknowledge the quiet strength and command she exuded, the result of years of disciplined, focused practice, culminating in a performance that left the entire dojo on edge, suspended in silent appreciation and anticipation of what would come next. Emily paused for a moment at the center of the dojo, her chest rising and falling steadily as the room seemed to hold its breath. The energy of every observer focused on the quiet student who had demonstrated such mastery without a single falter. Brad shifted slightly, his arms crossed and brow furrowed, a mixture of surprise and respect subtly breaking through his previously confident demeanor. While the black belts exchanged glances, some leaning forward, others stepping slightly back, each instinctively recognizing the difference between skill that had been assumed and skill that had been proven. The sunlight continued to stream through the tall windows, highlighting the polished mats and casting long shadows that mirrored the precision of Emily's movements as she prepared for the next segment of the drill. Her eyes scanned the room, noting the subtle adjustments of her peers, the timing of their steps, and the flow of the sequences, her awareness encompassing the entirety of the space in a calm, deliberate observation. Emily shifted her weight and moved fluidly into the next combination, her motions precise, deliberate, and perfectly timed, each step measured against the rhythm she had internalized, demonstrating control and grace that had been quietly accumulating since she had first entered the dojo. The sound of the mats beneath her feet, the faint rustle of fabric, and the soft intake of breath from other students created a rhythmic backdrop, all of which she navigated with an almost seamless integration of observation and execution, her focus unbroken by the subtle shifts in attention from the instructors and classmates. Brad's voice occasionally rose to offer direction, yet Emily's performance remained undisturbed, her calm composure acting as a stabilizing presence in the room, drawing the gaze and the attention of those around her without a single overt gesture to demand it. The other students watched intently, some adjusting their stance unconsciously to align with the rhythm she set, while others leaned forward slightly, captivated by the unexpected demonstration of coordination and awareness, their prior assumptions quietly dissolving. Emily's breathing maintained a steady cadence, each movement flowing smoothly into the next, a silent testament to her years of disciplined practice, her anticipation and awareness allowing her to navigate the evolving drill with an ease that made complex sequences appear effortless. The sunlight glinted off her GI, highlighting the subtle tension and release of muscles in perfect synchronization, and the quiet hum of focus throughout the dojo seemed to bend around her presence, emphasizing her mastery without the need for words or overt acknowledgment. Brad's gaze followed each movement, the faint smirk now replaced by a careful attention, a recognition that the quiet student had revealed a level of skill and preparation that demanded respect. The student's subtle reactions, the shifting glances, the tentative whispers, all contributed to a growing sense of realization that Emily's calm presence and disciplined focus had transformed the energy of the room, quietly commanding attention and setting a standard that was impossible to ignore. Emily continued her sequence with controlled precision, the subtle adjustments, the fluid transitions, and the graceful timing creating a seamless flow, and as she completed the series of movements, she returned to a neutral stance, breathing steadily, her eyes scanning the dojo to absorb the impact of her performance. The room remained suspended in a moment of quiet acknowledgment, the energy of anticipation giving way to a collective recognition of the skill, composure, and discipline that Emily had demonstrated, leaving instructors and students alike silently appreciating the quiet mastery that had been revealed. The room remained in a hushed stillness as Emily stood quietly, her posture straight, eyes calm yet observant, and the weight of her presence filling the dojo in a subtle but undeniable way. Brad and the other instructors exchanged long glances, their expressions a mix of astonishment and reluctant respect, realizing that the assumptions they had carried about the quiet newcomer had been completely upended. The students around them began to whisper softly, some shaking their heads in disbelief, others simply watching with admiration, recognizing that the display they had just witnessed was the result of years of discipline, focus, and meticulous practice. Emily's breathing remained measured, each exhalation steady and controlled, as if the quiet rhythm of her body were a mirror of the composed authority she had projected throughout the session. The sunlight streaming through the windows caught the subtle movement of her GI and the polished reflections on the mats, casting long, soft shadows that accentuated the grace and precision in her stance. Brad took a small, deliberate step back, his arms uncrossing slightly, and for the first time allowed a hint of genuine acknowledgment to pass over his features, the faintest lift of his eyebrows signaling an appreciation of the skill that had been revealed. Emily's eyes swept the room once more, taking in the reactions of her peers, the subtle expressions of astonishment and newfound respect, and the quiet energy shift that now pervaded the dojo. The soft hum of concentration and the residual tension slowly settled, giving way to a muted acknowledgement that the quiet student had not only met the expectations of the drill, but had elevated it to a level that left an impression on everyone present. The other students adjusted slightly in their positions, some straightening their stances, others offering tentative nods, and the room's collective focus seemed to shift to a new baseline of attentiveness, as if silently agreeing that the lesson extended beyond technique to one of composure, preparation, and understated mastery. Brad's voice finally broke the quiet, his tone even but carrying a note of respect as he addressed the room with calm authority, highlighting the importance of observation, preparation, and disciplined practice, words that seemed particularly resonant in the wake of Emily's demonstration. The subtle shift in energy was palpable, a quiet but powerful acknowledgement that skill and focus could emerge from places least expected, and that appearances alone were a poor measure of capability. Emily remained composed, her gaze softening slightly, a small, measured nod acknowledging the recognition from those around her, and as she adjusted her stance to a relaxed position, the room seemed to collectively exhale, the tension replaced by a quiet sense of admiration and understanding. The sunlight continued to illuminate the dojo, reflecting off the polished floor and casting a warm glow over the attentive faces. The subtle shift in posture and the calm energy that Emily exuded now influencing the room as much as her demonstrated skill. The session gradually began to move forward with renewed focus, the students integrating the lesson of observation, patience, and composure, while Brad and the other instructors observed with an altered perspective, their expectations recalibrated by the quiet authority and understated expertise that Emily had displayed. The room had settled into a calm, attentive rhythm, the energy now reflective rather than anticipatory, and the impression of the quiet student lingered, a powerful reminder of the value of preparation, focus, and the often unseen depth of skill that can exist behind a composed and unassuming exterior. As Emily stood in the center of the dojo, breathing evenly and poised, the soft echoes of footfalls and the subtle rustle of fabric marked the continuation of the class, yet the memory of her demonstration remained, leaving a quiet, lasting lesson about respect, mastery, and the understated power of confidence cultivated through diligence and dedication.